In this video, I want to show you how to make a draft for flared culottes in the Valentina pattern making software. To draft circle culottes, I'll utilize my circle skirt pattern. First, I'll incorporate some measurements. Along with waist circumference, I'll also note down crotch depth and hip circumference measurements. Although I'm using the circle skirt pattern as my foundation, I'll tweak the waist arc. As I'm only drawing one leg of the culottes, the waist arc must be halved, hence, I'll divide the formula by 2. The waist arc's value equates to half the waist circumference. For a smoother workflow, I'm adding a conversion value to the variables table. My chosen method uses formulas in inches, so I've added the conversion value for 1 inch in centimetres. This allows me to work with inches but convert to centimetres simultaneously. Beginning with the front piece, I'll mark the crotch depth on the A1-A3 line, adding 3/4 of an inch. A6 is the midpoint between A1 and A5, with an additional ½ inch. A7 is perpendicularly marked from A5. For the front piece, the formula is 1/8 of the hip circumference minus 3/4 of an inch. Alternatively, you can use half the basic front hip value. A8 is squared from A3, equating to the distance between A5 and A7. Although I used the point from X and Y of 2 other points tool, I recommend using point along perpendicular. This is more versatile should you wish to alter the angle of line A1-A3 later on. Next, I'll connect these points. A9 aids in drafting the crotch curve. It's set diagonally 1½ inches from A9. Using the Shift key ensures a set angle. For more versatility in arc angles, consider the method I'll showcase for the back piece. I'll join these points with a curve, refining its shape as needed. Let's move on to the back piece. The value of A2-A10 matches that of A5-A3, while A10-A11 mirrors A5-A6. A12 is marked perpendicularly from A10. For the back piece, the formula is 1/8 of the hip circumference plus 3/4 of an inch. Alternatively, use half the basic back hip value. A13 is marked perpendicular from A4, equivalent to the distance from A4 A13. These points are then connected. Point 15 is marked at a fixed 225-degree angle from A10, with a distance of 1 3/4 inch. This angle primarily suits this specific circle skirt angle. I'll later detail how to adapt for varying circle arcs. Ignore now point A14, it comes from another drawing. I'll join these points with a curve, adjusting its color for clarity. Let's see what happens when I modify the skirt arc angle to 45 degrees. After altering the arc angle, A15 isn't diagonal due to its fixed 225-degree angle. To address this, I'll revert to a 90-degree circle arc. Instead of marking A15 diagonally from A10, I'll measure the same distance on lines A10, A12 and A10, A11. Point A16 is the midpoint between A14 and A15, thus securing it between perpendicular lines. Again, let's alter the arc angle to 45 degrees. With A16 now diagonal, minor curve adjustments are required. Even at a 270-degree arc angle, curve reshaping is the only necessary step. I'll now segment my pattern into front and back pieces. This enables separate modifications, perhaps adding a side seam or pockets. By using the segment of an arc tool, I'll halve both the waist and hem arcs. Connecting these points provides the side seam line. For an improved fit, I'll alter the front waist arc by reducing its center front by 1.5 centimeters. I draw a new front waist curve. With the workpiece tool, I'll add the front and back patterns to the details. Ensure objects are selected in a clockwise manner, reversing curve directions when needed. In Details mode, I'll hide unnecessary pieces from the original circle skirt pattern. Seam allowances are then added. I'll align the grain line with the center back and center front lines. You can manually set or fix the grain line. To emphasize the importance of a fixed grain line, see what happens to grain line shift when the circle arc angle is adjusted to 45 degrees. Additionally, the crotch seam curve needs some adjustments. Switching back to draw mode, I'll reshape the curve and correct the grain line. To set the grain line, in draw mode, I select 2 points on the center back and 2 on the center front. These are added to the back and front pieces, respectively. In detail mode, these can be set as the top and bottom pins for grain lines. The front waistline curve will also be adjusted, and notches will be added. Now, let's see the pattern with a 270-degree arc angle. Again, only curve adjustments are needed, with no grain line modifications. The waist arc's value remains half the waist circumference. Culotte length can also be altered. Here's a very short version. And here we have a long and wide version, with the length of 100 centimeters and an arc angle of 270 degrees. Sometimes if we make big changes, an error may appear in the details mode. Here, I've set the length at 100 centimeters and the arc angle to 45 degrees. A noticeable error emerges. By switching back to draw mode, I can quickly reshape the curves and the errors are corrected. Lastly, the pattern is ready to print. I lean towards automatic layout, but a manual puzzle layout is also an option. You can preview the tiled PDF print and select your desired print format. Thank you for following this tutorial.